Buchenwald concentration camp, 1945, chapter 25. Buchenwald concentration camp. Just the looks on the faces of the prisoners already there told me all I needed to know. They were scared, wide-eyed, and not just at roll call or when the cable passed by. It was all the time, like at any moment death might come for you. And at Buchenwald, as I was to learn, death came in many guises. After our first roll call, I was assigned to the stone quarry. Instead of breaking rocks, I was told to carry them up a long hill. I had to carry the big rocks on my back with my arms behind me to hold them in place. If you took a stone too large, you would drop it and the Nazis would shoot you. If you took a stone too small, the Nazis would shoot you for being lazy. Picking just the right size stone became kind of a competition among us. Another fine joke from the Some of the prisoners pulled carts instead of carrying stones on their backs, but that wasn't a job you wanted either. The Jews were chained to the carts like a team of draught horses and whipped like animals. Only these animals were required to sing. The Germans called them their singing horses. They had to carry a tune as they hauled enormous loads of rock up the hill. I had already been part of the prisoner chorus at Sachsenhausen. I was grateful I didn't have to do it strapped to a horse cart here. It was only at our second roll call of the day that I saw the Buchenwald Zoo. I had not seen the fenced-in area at the first roll call, but not the animals. There were deer, monkeys, and even bears. Bears! Right there, in the concentration camp. The zoo, I learned, was the idea of the camp's commandant, Karl Koch, and his wife, Isle. The commandant had built it so his guards and their families would have something to entertain them. We starving prisoners stood at attention with our hunched shoulders and gaunt faces and oversized filthy clothes, while healthy, well-fed children and their mothers came to see the animals. The little girls wore pretty dresses and shiny black shoes and ribbons in their hair. The little boys wore shorts and jackets and caps just as I used to. Sometimes they sucked on lollipops watching us, the way that they watched the animals. What were they thinking, those little German children? Did they see animals when they looked at us, or people? I wasn't so sure myself anymore. The bears in the zoo were better fed than the prisoners. At roll call, we'd watched as big bloody steaks were fed to the bears. I was so hungry I would have fought one of those bears for that meat and eaten it raw, steak and bear. One day the Nazis gave us 2 prisoners the chance. They dropped a piece of raw meat in the mud between 2 men and told them to fight for it, and they did. The SS officers laughed at them and hit them with clubs while the Jews scrambled in the mud for their dinner. The animals in the zoo were never treated so badly. The commandant was a brutal man, but his wife was worse. The prisoners called her Witch of Buchenwald and Breast of Buchenwald, or Beast of Buchenwald. As with Amon Goth years before, I did my best to stay away from both Er and Frau Koch. One day at roll call, the Witch of Buchenwald walked up and down the rows of prisoners with one of the SS guards. She came to me, checked the number tattooed on my arm, and moved on to the next prisoner. She read the number tattooed on his arm and checked it against the list of the clipboard the soldier carried. "You," she said to the prisoner, "I am told you have another tattoo." The prisoner nodded nervously. "Show it to me," Isle Koch said. The man pulled up his sleeve. The thin, bony arm showed her a faded tattoo of a crescent moon. "Yes," the witch said. "Very nice. Mark him down," she told the soldier. He made a note on his clipboard. When they were gone, I heard the man beside me give a little whimper, like he was trying not to cry. What difference did it make that he had a tattoo? Why had it made the Witch of Buchenwald single him out? He must have been asking himself the same questions. All that mattered was that he was on the witch's list. He had been noticed, and surviving meant never being noticed by the Nazis. After the roll call, I never saw the man with the other tattoo again. One day I was washing myself at the camp water pump, part of my daily ritual, when I saw 2 SS officers lure a deer to the fence of their enclosure in the zoo. It was a sleek animal with tall, broad antlers. While it nibbled on the food one of them offered, the other officer tied its antlers to the fence with a leather strap. The buck only discovered that when it was trying to pull away. It snorted and stamped and whipped its head back and forth, trying to pull itself free, but it was trapped. The SS officers laughed at it and taunted it and left it tied to the fence. I had seen Nazis do terrible things, inhumane, unimaginably cruel things, and I had started to become numb. But somehow, seeing that deer there, thrashing around, trying to free itself from the fence, made my blood boil. I wanted to run over and untie it to set it free, but I couldn't. There were too many other German soldiers around. If they saw me near the zoo, I would be shot. So I turned my back on him, and I left the buck tied to the fence. As much as I wanted to help him, I had to look out for myself. At roll call that night, the 2 SS officers who had tied the deer up were pulled off duty by the commandant. Word of what they had done had gotten back to Koch, and he berated them in German. Their zoo privileges were taken away, and they were not allowed to watch films in the camp movie theater for 3 months. Cruelty to prisoners the Nazis could abide, but not cruelty to animals. At roll call a few days later, they told us we were being moved again. GrossRosen needed workers, and there were no new shipments of prisoners coming in from the countryside. The prisoners in the camps would be reassigned from now on, as each camp needed workers. The Nazis had killed so many of us that they were running out of Jews. GrossRosen concentration camp, 1945, chapter 26. They took us by train. They packed us in again so tightly we could do nothing but stand, and gave us no food or water for the trip. People died all around me just like before, but now I hardly took notice of it. I had been surrounded by death for so long, seen so many men die before my eyes, lived with so many dead bodies piled and stacked and strewn about like so much human firewood, that I almost couldn't care anymore. Almost. I closed my eyes on the train, trying not to see all the death around me, but I knew it was there. Sleep was my only refuge from the horror, the thirst, and the starvation. So I retreated there, dozing on and off again, as the train shuddered and creaked on its way to a new camp. I had long since stopped hoping that each new camp would be better. Each was no better or worse than the last. They were all different rooms in purgatory, each different, but each the same. And the Nazis made it all more nonsensical by shuttling us around from one to the other as though it made any difference. Planes flew over the train so low just their passing shook the cars, and we heard the patter of bullets. A bomb exploded so near the tracks we could feel the heat from it. The train stopped, and suddenly I had a vision of a bomb falling right on us, killing us all. And for a moment I wanted it to happen the way Fred had said so long ago. And anything that would get me out of this nightmare. But the planes went away and the bombs stopped falling and the train started to move again. I couldn't have told you if I was more disappointed or relieved. When the door to the train car finally opened at GrossRosen, our new concentration camp, bodies fell out. We left even more bodies in the cars. Those of us who had survived the trip, who had survived camp after camp after camp, shuffled into GrossRosen without fear or expectation. Nothing the Nazis could do could surprise any of us now. They gave us our barrack assignments and put us right to bed. I sank into a deep stupor. First thing in the morning, we were put to work right away with no more time to recover from our torturous train ride like at Bergen-Belsen. On the train, I had wanted a bomb to fall on us to put me out of my misery. But now that I was back in camp and it was awful business like usual, my old instinct to survive kicked in again. If it was a game, then I had my own part to play. The Nazis would try to kill me, slowly, randomly, teasingly, and I would resist. I would work, I would survive. If the Nazis were going to play their game, so was I. The Nazis needed more workers at GrossRosen for the war effort. They believed they could beat the Allies, even though we'd heard that Russians had taken Warsaw and Dresden, and Dresden was in flames. Any day now, the prisoners whispered among one another. The Allies will be in Berlin and we will be set free. But not today. Today we build more barracks. As I worked, I told myself that there would be another world after this one, a bright, shining, beautiful future where I didn't wear blue and gray stripes, where I ate 3 full meals a day, where I wouldn't work until I passed out, where I could have friends again, where I could have family again, where I could laugh again. That world existed, I knew. I couldn't reach it now, not yet, but soon, if I survived. So I worked, not so hard I would die, but not so little I would be punished. As Moshe had told me so long ago, I put my head down and I worked, day and night, worked to live. "You there," Akiba said to me one day. He stopped me with the end of his club, poked into my chest. I raised my eyes to him, the first time I'd looked up in days, maybe weeks. "Where is your button?" he asked me. I blinked. I had no idea what he was talking about. Dully, I looked down at the raggedy shirt I wore. The top button was missing. I hadn't even noticed. I don't know, I said. My voice surprised me. It was nothing more than a croak. I hadn't spoken a word to anyone for days. I licked my lips and tried again. I must have lost it. You know what the penalty is for losing a button, don't you? The capo said. 20 lashes. 20 lashes. I was going to be flogged for the crime of losing a button. I closed my eyes. I was too tired to cry, too exhausted to even feel angry. At roll call, I was pulled out of the lines and marched to a wooden horse, a polished barkless log with 4 wooden feet, and laid over it with my bare back facing up. Keep count, the Nazi with the whip told me. Crack! My back erupted in pain as the first lash hit me. I jerked on the log, almost falling off, but I grabbed on tighter. If I fell off, it would only be worse for me. 1, I said in Polish. In German, the soldier said. We'll start again. Crack. I closed my eyes to the pain. How would I ever survive 20 lashes when 2 hurt worse than anything I'd ever felt before? Eins, I said. Crack. Zwei. Crack. Drei. Crack. Vier. Crack. 5. Crack. 6. Crack. 7. Crack. 8. Crack. 9. Crack. 10. Crack. Ein. Nazi soldier tuttered. No, no, no. It is elf. Did they teach you nothing in your Jewish schools before the war? I will teach you. We'll begin again. I remember very little after my lashes were finished. I couldn't even tell you how many I actually eventually had. More than 20, that was certain. When they were finished with me, I was dragged to the barracks and dumped onto one of the shelves where I passed out. That night, I had a dream. I was in a beautiful green meadow. Yellow wildflowers grew here and there, so tall they swayed in the light summer's breeze. In the distance, a brook burbled happily along, and a great tree beyond it spread its branches wide. I sat in the grass and listened to a cricket chirp nearby, totally at peace. But then a dark cloud appeared on the horizon. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled over the hills. No, I said, not wanting my perfect afternoon disturbed, but the storm kept coming. Lightning split the air near me, and cracoom! The thunder knocked me down. The earth shook beneath me. The ground cracked and opened. I tried to grab something to stop my fall, but my hands clutched only air. I fell into a deep black abyss lined with tree roots and rocks, and they struck me as I fell. Crack, 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 crack. I counted them in German as I fell. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom! Something exploded near the barracks, shaking me out of my dream. I raised myself up on my elbows. I had to sleep on my stomach because my back was too raw with pain. There were prisoners packed in all around me. Roll call had long since ended, and it was the middle of the night. Boom! The barrack rumbled again, and as another bomb fell close to the camp. Everyone was awake now, every prisoner, and we watched the roof and waited without a word to see if one of the bombs would fall on us and kill us all. But no, the bombs fell all through the night, and as soon as we all went back to sleep. Raining death was no reason not to sleep, not when there was work to be done tomorrow. As I laid back down on my stomach, my bloody back still screaming in agony, I remembered my dream. I told myself I would not fall down the hole. I would climb out again. The Allies were getting closer, and I was going to be there to welcome them when they got here.